The change has been made as John Mozeliak officially passes the torch to Chaim Bloom. We'll talk about what the new president of baseball operations had to say about the team, the organization's direction moving forward, and of course, the biggest announcement that was made today, the return of manager Oli Marmol in 2026. This is Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Hafron, a former national radio sports anchor, born and raised in the Lou, and a lifetime Cardinals fan, and I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. This is a show that serves Cardinal Nation and gives you all of the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app, so download the app today. On today's episode, we'll get your thoughts on what we all got to hear from Chaim Bloom and a little bit of John Mozeliak on Monday, but we start with what we got on Tuesday. The fresh voice has finally spoken. The changing of the guard, the turning of the page, the passing of the torch, whatever cliche you want to use. Bottom line is John Mozeliak is out and Chaim Bloom is in as your new president of baseball operations. And he spoke on Tuesday, and I know fans want, instant knowledge about things like who's going to get traded and who's going to get extensions, what's going on with the coaching staff moving forward, etc. And those things will come in time. And he did hit on those subjects a little bit, but for the most part, it was more of a state of the union, but instead state of the Cardinals address, if you will, and how they plan to move forward with Chaim running the show. I suppose the best place to start here is one thing that we did get some clarification on, and he didn't actually say this in the press conference itself, but the first person I saw report on this was Frank Cusimano, that Oli Marmol is going to be back as the manager of the team for next season. If you watched yesterday's episode, you know that this doesn't surprise me in the slightest. He still had a year left on his contract. He's already got a rapport with the players, ownership, and with the team in this state of flux right now like it is. Bringing in a new manager, at least to me, didn't seem like something that they would do. Now in the press conference, he did address the on-field staff a little bit when he said, as far as our field staff goes, there's still some things we need to sort out with every single person on the staff. I expect a lot of continuity. It's a good group of people that care. And this aligns with what I thought was going to happen. I said it yesterday. Chaim Bloom's not coming in to just blow this thing up into smithereens. That's not what he's doing. He's not getting rid of all the coaching staff that has been here under Mozeliak's watch, despite some opinions. This isn't really the top priority to get this thing back on track. I don't put as much blame on the coaching staff as I do just on players in general. I've said this before, and I'll continue to say it over and over again, that talent is the most important thing that you need right now. You have to have talented players on your roster, then find a manager that can get the most out of that particular talent day in and day out. Right now, the talent level on this roster is well below average. It just is. When Brendan Donovan, and no offense to Brendan Donovan, but when Brendan Donovan is arguably the best player on your roster and has the highest WAR on your team, that means your talent level is not even close to being where it needs to be to field a championship caliber team, which is the ultimate goal. Brendan Donovan's a solid player, and he's going to be a good player for this team or somebody else at some point if that's what they decide to do. But he's not somebody you build a team around, right? You're kind of building this thing around younger guys, the Mason Winns and the Ivan Herreras and hopefully J.J. Weatherholtz and stuff like that. If you're building around Brendan Donovan, then you're just going out to kind of go, let's see if we can get a win. The ultimate goal isn't to just compete each night. It's to win the whole freaking thing. Have a legitimate shot to do that every single year. And the problem with the Cardinals has been is as veterans like Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado rapidly declined, I don't think they've saw that their decline would be as quick as it was, considering how good they were both in 2022. And then for everything to just fall off a cliff in 2023 and not turn around the way they thought, I think that was a big problem. And when that went down, the Cardinals didn't have anyone to come up and take those spots. It was supposed to be Nolan Gorman and Jordan Walker, but that hasn't happened, not even in the slightest. And I know there are a lot of people who don't like Oli, who don't think he's a very good manager, and that's fine. You're more than welcome to have that opinion. You shouldn't be ridiculed for it. There's an argument to say that maybe he's not a great manager. I'm just not one of them. I'm just not somebody who feels that way. Does he make mistakes? Of course he does. Sure, all managers do, and he'll continue to make some mistakes. Nobody's perfect. But I've said this since last year, and this is what stood out to me most about Oli moving forward was, how did the players respond to him? You know, did he lose the clubhouse? Has he lost the locker room? Did they quit on him? Do they look like they value his opinion? Does he have their trust? And from what I've seen over the last few years is that he absolutely does. You know, you don't see people looking at him. You know how, like, you'll see some of the NFL players, they go to the sideline and they kind of talk down to their coaches and kind of give off that jerk vibe or whatever. I've never seen that from anybody in regards to Oli. You had the one tiff between him and Tyler O'Neill at one point, but that was very early on in his career, and I think he's learned from that. From everything I've seen and heard, the clubhouse likes him. You know, ownership, the front office, they like him. When the talent level was at its highest during that first year that he came on in 2022, his rookie year as a manager, mind you, they went to the playoffs. They didn't win. They got beat by the Phillies, got upset by the Phillies. Mistakes were made. Not saying there weren't. He undoubtedly has learned from those mistakes, though. At least I think so. I've seen him evolve as a manager and become better. Do we feel that he's getting the best out of what he's got? I don't know, because the talent level has not ever been all that great. You know, how is he supposed to? Is it his job to motivate Nolan Arenado to be the guy he was 3 years ago? Like, I'm sure he tries, but, like, you know, it is what it is. There's a talent level that is there on that roster right now, and it's not nearly good enough. It's just not. And I don't care who the manager is. If you're going to bring in who do you think's the best manager in baseball? They're probably managing a really freaking good team. You know, would Mike Schilt, if you want to bring him up, would Mike Schilt do better with this Cardinal team? I don't think so. I just think that the talent level is not where it needs to be for anybody to manage them and compete. Firing him and everyone around Oli and starting over, I just don't think that's the answer, in my opinion. Finding better talent is what you need to do, and get those people in the door and for his staff to work with. And I think that will make the biggest difference in how soon this franchise is competing for a championship again. Does this mean that you're going to miss out on guys like Yadier Molina and Albert Pujols as your manager? Maybe. You know, Skip Schumacher already is the odds-on favorite to take over in Texas. That's who he's been with. So they let Bruce Bochy go, who's a fine manager, obviously. Most people think he'll go to the Giants, but now that they've moved on from Bob Melvin. So Skip doesn't seem like that's going to be a thing, but I think Yachty is closer to being a major league manager than Albert Pujols is at this point. So we'll see what happens. But Oli is here for at least one more go-around. He's got one more year on his contract, and we'll see what happens after that. Like I said in yesterday's show, I am under the impression that they finish out the contract and then they move forward with somebody else. So this did not surprise me that he'll be back for at least one more year. Chaim did address the talent level and what the immediate goals are for him and his staff. And he at least didn't use that one trigger word when talking about it. So we'll discuss what he had to say next, coming up on Locked On Cardinals. You've probably seen a million ads for hair growth products and thought, sure, like that actually works. There are so many products out there, and it's hard to know which ones are actually going to get some results for you. Do anything, and that's why I think you should give Nutrafol a closer look if you haven't already. It is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people, and now Nutrafol is the official hair growth partner of Major League Baseball. You can feel great about what you're putting into your body when it comes to Nutrafol because their supplements are backed by peer-reviewed studies and NSF content certified the gold standard in third-party certification for supplements. One of the great things about Nutrafol, in my opinion, is how simple it is to add to your daily routine. There's no weird solutions or sprays. You just take 4 little pills. You take it with a meal. And that's it. There's no prescription needed. You don't have to talk to a doctor about this. It's very easy, and you'll see thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol for a limited time. Just think about this. By the time the season starts next year, you could have thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair ready to go for the 2026 season. And for a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month's subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Find out why Nutrafol is the best-selling hair growth supplement brand at Nutrafol.com. That's spelled Nutrafol.com. Promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Nutrafol.com. Promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Thanks again for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you enjoy daily Cardinals content, you can follow the podcast on X at @LO_Cardinals. We're also on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at Locked On Cardinals. All right, I'm going to say the word. Not everybody freak out when I do, but patience. Patience. There it was. Patience. One of John Mozeliak's favorite words during his tenure. Something that this fan base has run out of when it came to Mo as the voice of this organization and of this team. Mo admitted as much that the franchise needed a fresh voice. Someone who would do things perhaps differently than he would, and he understood that. And he said, sometimes change is good. I've seen a lot of fan feedback already who, are just happy to have someone else speaking to them and representing the Cardinals organization. And I agree with those sentiments. Like, it was nice to hear Chaim Bloom up there doing what he was doing and the way he spoke and the way he explained things. It was amusing during the press conference to me that, you would hear Chaim speak, and then when a question would be for Bill DeWitt the third, more than Junior. Junior doesn't bother me so much, but Bill DeWitt the third, he talks very much like Mo does. Like it sounds just like Mo on the mic all over again. Not the sound of his voice, but the way he speaks. Very similar tones, very similar pacing to what they're saying. And I was just like, no, I don't want to hear that voice. I'm over that one. But when Chaim would speak, it was like a breath of fresh air. It was to hear him explain things as opposed to the same Mo voice that we've heard for so long. I enjoyed that. And I think a lot of fans did as well. We're going to get to some of that in the Cardinal Confessions in segment 3. Plus, he never did use that word patience. He never said the word runway. And for me, that was awesome because I don't want to hear those words for a while. I am so burned out on the word patience and runway. Like I want to gag. I want to gag hearing it. Like I'm done. I don't need those words in the vocabulary anymore. Find something else. But what did he have to say? That's what really is most important. And so as far as I'm going to go through a couple of the notes that I took when I was watching it. So as far as the goals of the organization moving forward, said his top priority is, and I completely agree with this, build the talent base. And to do so without any shortcuts. Chaim has been part of 2 organizations now. The Rays and the Red Sox, where he was a key cog in developing players, building those farm systems up and making them both one of the best in the business. The Cardinals used to have that. That used to be their thing, and they have fallen flat in recent years. So that's something he's certainly going to try and turn around first and foremost. And you saw many of those changes in 2025 where, they hired additional advisors and coaching, and they're upgrading everything as far as getting the best tools for these players and for these coaches to use to get the most out of the players that they have. So they expect to continue to do things like that. They said that there will be more additional staff that's going to be brought on in the minors, although he said it wouldn't be quite on the scale as it was this past year when they had to bring in a lot of new minds, and that's fine, but they're going to continue going in that direction. They asked him about the international free agents, and when Chaim spoke about it, he used the word critical. to describe how important the international talent pool is and that they will continue to invest in that. One of the things, we've talked about free agency where the Cardinals, they don't want to compete with what these bigger market teams are paying for free agents. But if you can find them in the international talent pool first, get them locked into your system, that's another way to build that farm system up quickly, and those guys can become stars at the major league level. As far as the long and short-term goals are concerned, he made it a point to say that if they have to choose a path, that they will always choose long-term, but that at the same time, that they will always be competing in the short term. They're not going to sacrifice long-term goals for like a quick fix, is what I took from that, which to me means that they aren't ever expecting to need to just blow up the roster or anything like that, like the Minnesota Twins just did this past year, where they traded like 10 dudes away at the deadline, just blew it up. That's what that reminds me of, or I should say reminds me, but makes me think that they want to be in a spot where that never, ever, ever has to happen, where they never have to tear it all the way down and rebuild everything again. So that means no minimum level of talent, no minimum level of spending where they're just counting pennies. Like they plan to compete and they plan to turn this thing around, but they're choosing long-term over short-term, which means don't expect in free agency this year for them to just go on some spending spree to try to get things turned over quicker. They're going to go with the young talent that's in the system. Speaking of payroll, speaking of spending, how would that look moving forward? I think it was STL Today's Ben Hockman who asked about that. I think that's who it was. And Bill DeWitt Jr. said didn't really have any specifics on payroll at this time, but he said he didn't think he and Chaim actually have even discussed payroll yet. But when Chaim was asked about it by Jim Hayes later in an interview, he said that he expects the resources to be there for what they are trying to do, which means, again, to me, they're not going to go out and spend $1 gazillion in this offseason. They're not. That's not what they're shooting for. That's not what this is going to be built around. It's going to be built around young talent, developing them, and then bringing in pieces to fit with those guys. One of my big issues with John Mozeliak in recent years was that he had the funding. It's not like the Cardinals weren't giving him money to play with, and he would make bad decisions with that money. Until this year, the Cardinals were always part of the upper half in spending in the league, usually top 10. They just have to make better investments than what Mo had done recently. And like I said, it was like they were always trying to fill a hole, there's like there's a dam and the water's coming through, a hole would pop and they would try to fill it with one guy and then bloop, bloop, two more would pop open. And they just kept doing that with their money instead of like, well, hold on. Let's be smart about this. They just kept patchworking things up. And that kind of got them to where they are. When asked about the low attendance numbers, Bill DeWitt III used these two words, message received. Message received. He also said that a winning team is most important in terms of attendance. But he also listed off a number of other contributing factors like the parking prices, the concession value. Spent a little extra time talking about safety around the ballpark in downtown. But the fact that he started with winning stood out to me because that's really what the fans want. You put a winning product onto the field, fans are going to come back. Like if you do things the right way and this team is exciting and fun to watch and they're winning more, you'll see the stands fill up again. But these other things that he listed are also reasons why some fans have decided to stay away. Some fans just can't afford it anymore. It's very expensive to go to a ball game. And I've seen the safety thing brought up a million times online where people are like, I'm not willing to get shot to go to a Cardinal game. I'm sorry. I'm not going down there at night with things being as scary as they are. So these are all things that he brought up and said, yeah, we're going to do our best to make sure that these are all upgraded and are better for the fans' experience so that they don't have to worry about stuff like this. But again, reiterated that winning is the most important thing in terms of attendance. So message received by the empty seats that were throughout the stands this season at home. Katie Wu asked why the draft and develop method is best for the franchise. Bill DeWitt Jr. pointed out that their best years were when that's how they operated, and that they have good young players coming to go along with some good young players that they currently have on the roster. And he's right. You've got some good stuff here. J.J. Weatherholt, Quinn Matthews, Eshaun Henderson, Reynel Rodriguez, Tekoa Roby, Bryson Motts, Tink Kentz, Cooper Jerpy, Leonardo Bernal, Liam Doyle, Jesus and Josh Baez, Daniel Ortiz, Yaro Padilla. All of these guys are the new core that will be infiltrating the major leagues at some point in the next couple of years. At least that's the goal. Or they're going to be used to go acquire guys that will be part of the core moving forward. You pair them with guys you already have in place: Mason Wynn, Ivan Herrera, Alec Burleson, Victor Scott, Thomas Ujasi, Jimmy Crooks, Matthew Liberatore, Kyle Leahy, Michael McGreevy, Matt Swanson. These are all younger dudes that are already in the major leagues. Will Gorman and Walker pan out ever? Hopefully. Are we banking on that anymore? Probably not after what we saw this year. But if they do, great. You mix that with veterans like Brendan Donovan and Wilson Contreras, who's made it known that he would prefer to stick around and be a part of this process. It's not like they just have nothing in the cupboard, which is kind of where they were a couple years ago, where it's just like, we don't have jack down here in the minors to bring up and help. So there's a reason to be optimistic when it comes to that. Just need a lot of these guys to hit, right? And when I say hit, I'm not talking about with the bat. I'm talking about hit as in becoming solid Major League Baseball players. And as I said, you surround those guys with pieces through free agency in trades. They desperately need a star player to emerge. I'm still holding out hope that Mason Wynn can be that guy for them. Is it Ivan Herrera? I don't know. Can you be a superstar DH? I know he's going to be trying catching again. I don't know. But they desperately need something like that. They need a superstar to really get this thing cooking in the right direction. And hopefully there's a couple of them in there to lead the way. Is J.J. Weatherholt going to be that guy? Maybe. You saw the year that Josh Baez. Could he be somebody like that? We'll find out. That's what this is all about. Chaim did say he didn't want to draw a line on who's in and who's out, but clearly there's going to be some roster changes moving forward with Nolan Arenado and Sonny Gray, obviously at the top of the list of guys that are more than likely going to get moved. Will Gorman or Walker be somebody that's on the move? Will Burleson or Donovan be somebody that's on the move? We don't know yet. But obviously we'll be paying attention. All right. Next, your thoughts and comments on the press conference. We're going to do kind of a Cardinal Confessions, where I'm going to read some of the stuff that you guys were posting on our X page. So we'll do that coming up next here on Locked On Cardinals. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet, you put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays. I've tried player props. I've even followed the live lines during games. You can too. We got Thursday Night Football. It's going to week 5 is going to be here. It is here, basically. It's here. We're on Tuesday, so it'll be here in a couple of days. Thursday Night Football, you got the 3-1 San Francisco 49ers at the 3-1 formerly St. Louis Rams. Christian McCaffrey, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, Matthew Stafford. You got some good talent that's going to be in that game. So whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night until a World Series champion is crowned. You'll get local analysis, but on a national scale. You can find MLB Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Myself and John Frisch from Locked On Angels did a little wild card preview series yesterday. Tonight, obviously, we'll be talking about the first games of the wild card series. So it should be fun. Time for a little mini Cardinal confessions. Got some reactions from fans about the press conference. So thank you to those of you who responded on X earlier today. As I mentioned at the beginning, a lot of fans seem to really enjoy Chaim's demeanor. They just kind of like the way he carries himself. Some of the reactions, a lot less condescending. I love Bloom's humility, and he felt more transparent. Could listen to Buddy talk all day. Has a very positive vibe around him. Incredibly well-spoken. I feel like he was honest, which is great. Obviously, he didn't use the word patience, which is fantastic. Fresh voice, new blood, new aura surrounding things. There was, just a vibe of positivity that he kind of had at the press conference today. Very much a welcome change to what we've been used to with Mo, where it was very dry. He sounded like the Bueller. Mo just talks that way. So to hear a different voice discussing these things and speaking the way he did, I think everybody liked it. Some things that stood out to fans. I'm in. They needed to reset how they approach development and younger player acquisitions. More energy than his predecessor. Seemed to be talking to the fans. That it's going to be a successful tenure, but slow to get there. Before the presser, I was thinking 2028, we'd be ready to legitimately compete. But now I think it'll be 2029, followed by long-term success. Saying no more shortcuts. We mentioned that earlier, where we're not going to take the easy road. We're going to stick to our guns. Long-term is what we're shooting for. That way we can sustain it even longer, like the person says here, that 2029 followed by long-term success. That's the ultimate goal. It's not one of these one-year flash in the pan. Let's be good for a year and then tear it down and start it all over again. That's not what they want. We aren't where our fans expect us to be. That stood out to somebody, which is, they're not. Like, we don't expect to be 500. That used to be taboo to be around 500, and it's become the norm over the last couple of seasons, and it's got to be better. It's got to be better. Another one here. They're being transparent with what fans are telling them. It's all encompassing. It's not just their performance. It's that they're charging too much for everything. Parking, concessions, and tickets. Lowering those will go a long way in addressing safety concerns. Some of the things that Bill DeWitt III spoke about was that, it's more, there's more things going on than just not winning, but not winning is the number one issue right now. And that they want to fix that, get butts back in the seats. That way we can start having some fun at Busch Stadium again, because that was sad, just sad this year. Here's another one. They can't just throw money at the problem. They'll be back in the same spot in 2 years. Instead, they're picking a long-term path for long-term consistent winning baseball. Exactly. That's the idea here. It's stuff like this, like reading through some of these. I would say 98% of what I saw today was positive about what was said by Chaim Bloom and ownership. This is why you guys get the nickname Best Fans in Baseball. Most of you understand what it's going to take to turn this thing around. It's not going to be a quick fix. They aren't going to suddenly be the Brewers in 2026 out of nowhere. Could they be better? Sure. Next year, there's a possibility of some of the, again, it's kind of what they were hoping for this year, that some of the younger guys would take a step up and become better players, and that would coincide with the veterans they have around them, and they would be a better team because of that. It just didn't happen. So maybe those young players that didn't take that next step, maybe they're a problem. And maybe there's other guys that should be getting chances over those guys. So we'll see. To have long-term success, though, number one, you have to have a strong farm system. And like Bill DeWitt Jr. said in the press conference today, where, our best years were when we had that going on. It all starts there. You develop star players, the Molinas, the Wainwrights, the Albert Pujolses. You have those guys, and then you bring in other free agents that want to play with those guys, and that's how they built championships. You make trades to receive star players with the good young talent that you have. You're able to flip them for the Matt Hollidays and the Scott Rowlands and the Jim Edmonds and those kind of guys. Although that was more of a Kemp Bottenfield thing, which is highway robbery. But you know what I'm saying, though. Like, you take these guys are like, hey, we see talent in your system. We'd like that. We'll give you one of these guys instead. And whether they pan out for those other teams, that's the other team's problem. But the Cardinals did that a lot and just kept flipping. And that's how they built championship teams. So they're trying to get back to that. It's not rocket science. It's really not. And Chaim has already proven twice that he can achieve those farm system goals and improvements that they're looking for. But it's going to take time because you don't just all of a sudden just get an influx of talent. You're like, yep, there it is. It takes a little bit to acquire it all. So through drafting, through the international talent pools, through obviously making trades, like getting rid of veteran guys to bring in younger dudes. So it's going to take a little time. But, he's encouraged by what they've already done and what he's seen so far and the people that they got in place. He seems very excited about it and wants to continue with that progression. So Oli is back. Some people aren't going to like that. I'm fine with it. I figured that's what was going to happen. We don't know which players are still going to be around to be a part of this new regime moving forward. That's the next step, and obviously we'll be watching. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, give us a follow on X at @LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio, TikTok and Instagram at Locked On Cardinals. Please subscribe on YouTube to help our channel and love for the Cardinals grow. We're going to be around throughout the entire offseason where everybody else peels off and starts going to the NFL and to the Blues and you still want your Cardinals content. That's what I'm here for. Exclusively. Just Cardinal stuff. That's what we're going to talk about. So join me on this journey, this new Chaim Bloom journey. You guys are the best fans in baseball for a reason. We'll see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.